is Fatima and welcome to today's TREA How To Workshop series on local food. Our discussion today will focus on how to use a food dehydrator, in which you can borrow from the London Library of Things, hosted through Reimagine Co. Now we'll hear from Pamela Reid, who offers us a wealth of information given her extensive experiences with growing and processing of local food. Welcome, Pam.
I'm Pamela, and I'm going to share one of my passions regarding food and processing food. And dehydration has been a part of my practice for many years now. I'm really happy to be sharing apples and tomatoes with you today. So I often will pick apples that are less than ideal or on the soft side, or really any condition of apple. You can pick any apple that is your favorite. These are from Apple Land. We're going to process them, cut them. We're going to put them in a little bit of lemon juice to stop them from oxidizing and turning brown. And I like to add a little bit of cinnamon, or you can add a favorite spice to them, or you can leave them plain. And then we will be transporting them into the dehydrator and then setting it up and then showing you what they would look like when they're done. There are a couple of different types of dehydrators. There's a small household one. This is the one that will be available for lending. And there are other smaller ones, like the classic round dehydrator with 5 trays, very easy to plug in. No controls, just an on-off switch. Very easy to use and to, I suppose, get your feet wet and out if dehydrating is something that you really enjoy. And then eventually I did purchase I have a full-size LEM. It's a 10-shelf stainless steel dehydrator, and it has a fairly large metal tray, and I can dehydrate and process food at once. So I'm going to share a little bit of what I do and some tricks, and we will certainly encourage everyone to learn more. Certainly more videos online and resources available at the London Public Library, as well as those in the community who are very experienced and still practice food preservation through drying. I like to keep things really basic. I don't core them. I will pretty much twist out the core and slice. So very easy, and I keep everything uniform. So when you're processing anything, same with cooking, of similar shape, size, thickness, that will ensure that they dehydrate at the same speed. And I will bring this over to show. And they're quite nice. I will remove the seeds, whatever is out, but they usually will fall out by themselves upon drying. So this is what they would look like, fairly thin. Then I will dip them in some lemon juice. You can use fresh lemons, any kind of citrus, really. In a pinch, I've used a grapefruit. So you can buy at the grocery store bottled lemon juice. And this is just going to be a dip bath. So very easily dipping the apples in both sides, make sure that it's covered in apple juice. And then in the dehydrator, good, laying them flat. Now, some people like to use parchment paper to line the trays. It's not necessary. It does speed up the cleanup process. And it would prevent anything from dripping through if you were doing more than apples at one time. So I like to turn my dehydrator on, preferably when it's full. So I will plan quite a few things to dry. I may dry herbs, tomatoes, zucchini, dried raspberries and strawberries and herbs from the garden. And I will run it during off-peak energy hours. So at this time of year, it is from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. So I will make sure that it is fully stocked. So I will have multiple things. So by putting a lining in between, it will ensure that juices and things don't drip down. So this model has a timer. So you can set a timer and a temperature fluctuation. So fruit and vegetables between 125 and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And I set the timer for about 8 hours. So running it overnight, and then in the morning, come out, check. And I usually turn things over. So that way I'm rotating, everything gets a chance to fully dry. I may even rotate the tray. So to lift this tray up and then to lower it down. So then everything has access to the heat, which is in the bottom unit. And then it is pretty much a play it by ear. Some pieces will be completely dehydrated and you can remove those, and then other pieces will need a little bit longer depending on the thickness. And it's very, very enjoyable. You tend to eat as you go a little bit. So after the apples are completely dry, and it may take a couple of nights, what I find was, depends on the time of year that you're dehydrating. The humidity in the air can definitely affect how fast things dry. It can sometimes take 15, 16 hours. It can often take 2 full cycles to get a completely dry apple. So once they've had a couple of nights of drying, the apples should look feel like leather. They should feel a little bit like thick paper. And as I said, I don't like to peel the skins off. I don't think it's necessary, but you certainly can. It's an extra step. And then once they're completely dry, I store them in an airtight jar. And then I've been known to gift these. These are great snacks. I will chop them up and toss them in other recipes. And I have been known to toss them in tea. There's a lot of different things that you can do with dried fruit once it's actually completely dry and ready for storage. So to further add, one of the most prolific crops I have in my gardens, I planted this year about 30 different kinds of heirloom tomatoes, and I always get bumper crop of cherry tomatoes. So cherry tomatoes and or any medium-sized tomato I find easy to dry as well. I do make sauce. I do process tomatoes in other ways, but I love drying them. It's a little burst of summer throughout the winter. So a couple of little tricks that I have learned. You can just take a cherry tomato and cut it in half, but I find that they're actually quite thick. So slice a cherry tomato into 3. So I will do there you go. And then what I do is I will bring the tray over. I will lay them all down with their backs down. If I dried them, find that they dry slower. I leave them a little bit spaced apart so the air can circulate around. And then I will fill the tray with fresh tomatoes so that they can dry. But I will also do like a full-size tomato. So if in my garden I get a nice big medium-sized or large king-sized tomato, I will do them in larger slices, and they will still dry. I just make sure that the slices are uniform in thickness. And then once the tray is completely dry, I sometimes add a bit of salt. I've added pepper. I've sprinkled them with garlic or chili powder. There's lots of different ways that you can spice them up. And then again, I set the timer and run them overnight, check them in the morning. I will rotate the trays around so that the ones at the bottom will usually be the driest first, and then I'll move them to the top and then set it up for another round of drying. And then to continuously check, they should be fairly dry inside. And when they're completely done, they will be curled and they will look fairly wrinkled, feel like leather. They may not even resemble tomatoes anymore, but they are completely delicious. And I dry them for gifts and for use over the winter. So I have a glass jar, and I will pack this and I will leave this in the fridge. I've also filled it up with oil and made like an oil-soaked cherry tomato, and you can use these in a variety of ways. I like them in pizza. I will toss them back into soup to rehydrate and blend. My recipe that I'm working on right now is focaccia. So that's one of the easiest ways of processing a large quantity of tomatoes. And a few other things that I was working on this year: ginger. So I was fortunate enough to get a small bushel of fresh ginger, and I will slice these into really thin, uniform slices and lay them on the trays. And then I have delicious dried ginger for teas and various recipes. And as a treat, I think most kids and adults love dried fruit. So I find pineapples and I slice them really thin and I dehydrate pineapple. And these don't require anything, no lemon juice. They're very acidic and they're a delicious treat. And then in the other side of the jar, we visited Heman's this year and bought a couple of flats of strawberries and we pureed and made strawberry leather. So the amount that I was able to make here and be able to enjoy the taste of strawberries all year long. So this is shelf stable. Another little tip, I keep all my little silica packs. These come in a variety of things and I reuse them. So they just help absorb any moisture and I just leave them in. So dehydration is certainly a hobby. I also do oranges. So oranges and lemons, I will slice them uniformly, lay them out on the dehydrator. And once dry, you can add them to hot tea. You could drop them in a bottle of water and certainly string them up for decorations or to add to potpourri or to simmer on the stove as a way to scent the house. So talking about the unit, it is a safe unit. I would make sure if it is on the counter that there's nothing around it touching it. It's not on paper. And it does get quite warm. And make sure that there's good airflow. Inform everyone in the house that dehydration is going on, and certainly I educate children about it as well. Certainly an activity that you can do with children, and they certainly love the idea of dipping it in the apple juice and laying them on the trays. And then once the apples are dry, then they get to see the end result of dehydration. So, and then everything that I have left over, I do keep my compost bucket here. The apple seeds, the cores, anything that might be sliced off does go right back out into the composter. And then to clean up, following all food safe guidelines, everything is then transported into the sink for a hot soap and water wash. And then once the apples are taken off the trays, you can submerge them in some warm soapy water in the sink and hand wash them. I wouldn't recommend the dishwasher. This is something that would be easily hand washed and air dried and then reassembled and put back into storage. A couple tricks that I found is having it readily available during the summer months when food is coming ready. So whether you're going to the grocery store and buying things that are in season so you can get a deal and save some money, or from your own garden. So, you know, we had the ongoing joke about too much zucchini. So having it readily available on your counter as an appliance that is accessible, so it's not a hassle to go and get a piece of equipment out of storage. So every day when I go outside and I pick tomatoes or I pick parsley, oregano, even calendula flowers to dry, it's readily available. I can pull a tray out and set it up. So same with the other unit. These two are very similar to this one. This one's a round unit, easy to soak and wash. And this one doesn't have a timer or temperature control. It is just an on-off button, so you have to watch it, set it overnight, and then check it in the morning, rotate the trays, and then put it away at the end of the season. But my preference was once I had a little more practice with a dehydrator, I purchased a LEM. It's a LEM, stainless steel dehydrator, and I use a combination. I've been slowly switching over from parchment paper to silicone trays. A silicone tray will fit right on over this. I can put all of my food on, and when it's all done, I can just wash the silicone and reuse it, so I'm not generating any waste. So it's fun. It saves me a great deal of money when food starts coming in the garden and it's in season. Drying is a low energy way post producing to store food. So I think of plenty of resources available online and in the London Public Library. And certainly social media, there's a lot of support groups. There's a lot of dehydration groups that you can join and learn a lot from other people who have been doing it a long period of time. So with my purchase of a much larger dehydrator, units were a great way of learning if this is something that I wanted to pursue. It's been part of my family and my journey to becoming a little more self-sufficient, being aware of my food miles, how far my food is traveling to my plate. And it's been a natural extension to my extensive vegetable gardens all around my house and supporting local farmers and eating in season. So I really enjoy being able to pull a squash out of my basket that I was able to produce this year, and certainly being able to process it and eat it throughout the winter. So certainly when the gardens give a bounty, like we all know the zucchini story. So when zucchinis get too big or you get too many, I do chop and freeze some. I do chop and make a spaghetti sauce and then bottle some, and then I slice them up and I make zucchini chips. So it allows me to be able to really fill a pantry to share with others. So a lot of my Christmas gifts are food centered and sharing my abundance with others. So it's become a lifestyle for me. I did start with a community garden plot, and I was able to harvest a great deal from my community garden plot. And now that I have a large backyard and front yard and various gardens throughout, I'm able to bring in parsley, celery, Swiss chards, and I've been able to completely dry it. I crush it down into a green powder, and it is stored so that I can add all of these things to soups. So I certainly feel like the nutrition is higher. I know where the food has come from. At the same time, I do visit farmers market. I do go out to Trails End. I have a network of colleagues and friends and family that go out outside the city and visit other farms, purchase and bring back squash, pumpkins, eggs, and such. So it's a wonderful hobby, and I would love to inspire others to jump in, start gardening a little, then gardening a lot. I came about dehydrating. I probably was given this unit as a gift many years ago, and it took me a little bit of time to come around to wanting to use it. And once I started, I was able to make sun-dried tomatoes and dry all of my herbs. In the back of my stove now, I have thyme, oregano, bay leaf, sage, and basil. So it really became part of my saving money and my kitchen being a place of production. And then I discovered that I could give gifts to people. So I started making my own herb blends and tea blends, and then actually processing things like catnip. I do have a cat, and being able to make things for myself was an exciting, and it's a hobby that I think you just expand on and you build on. So I experimented this year with fruit leathers. I know people do meat, beef jerky type things, so it's wide open, but it saves money and it allows me to feel a little bit more self-sufficient and inspired others to start dehydrating as well. So thanks for joining me here in my kitchen, and look forward to hearing everyone's stories of starting with dehydration and learning more. Thank you.